Hello, my name is Danielle Morgan, and today I'm going to persuade my audience that out-of-state tuition should be either lowered or removed completely. According to BusinessWeek.com, an average tuition at four-year public college this year is $8,244 for in-state students. However, for out-of-state students, it's on average at $20,770 for an out-of-state student. I was born and raised in Minnesota, and I wanted to escape the cold winters, and so I decided I wanted to come to Florida, and what better time than come for college. I had to work really hard to get in-state tuition. It took me over 2 years, so the first 2 years of college I had to pay the out-of-state tuition and be affected by that. Many students debating or struggling to decide which school to go to happens all the time, and unfortunately tuition costs have to be a very big part of this decision. Many students can't follow their dream because of this out-of-state tuition cost. Many students end up deciding to go to a school in-state just because of that tuition differential. I will be discussing tuition price differences from several states and from several universities in Florida. I will be discussing how it can cause people to not come to your school, and also how it can risk limiting access to your institution. First, I'll talk about the price differences for out-of-state tuitions versus in-state tuitions in many Florida universities. As I previously mentioned, the average cost of attendance at a four-year public college is $8,244 for in-state tuition versus the $20,770 for out-of-state. At University of North Florida, tuition is approximated at $35,192 for the 2014-2015 school year if you were to be living on campus, and that's for the out-of-state tuition, versus if you were in-state tuition living on campus, the tuition would be about $21,052. At the University of North Florida, tuition for this school year is estimated to be $20,550 for 2014 living on campus. And if you were to determine what the out-of-state tuition would be at the University of Florida, it says you're supposed to add on an additional $22,278 to the original figure. At Florida State, the estimated tuition cost for 2014 also living on campus is $21,684. Versus if you were an out-of-state student, tuition would be approximated at $39,058. Cost is very important when deciding which school to go to, which brings me to my second point. Tuition can cost a student to not come to a specific college or university. According to BangorDailyNews.com, in North Dakota, they realized that its high out-of-state tuition served as a barrier to attract students who might have provided what they would have needed at their university to provide certain revenue for their school as well. Revenue was lost, they realized finally, with their empty dorms and empty classrooms. If you were filling up all those dorms or filling up your classroom, you're paying for everything no matter what. You're paying the teacher to teach the students no matter how many students are in that class. And they suddenly realized that it's more important to fill up the classes versus have an empty class and get the students to pay more tuition. Because they realized this, they decided to discount the out-of-state tuition for nearby states. They charged a lower tuition than students would pay in public colleges and universities in their own state. And this bold step that they made resulted in a 56% jump in non-resident students. Also, because of the student tuition cost, many students can't go to their dream school. Tuition also had a very big factor in my school choice. I considered still going to school at home just because of that fact, but luckily UNF had a lower out-of-state tuition rate compared to many other out-of-state tuitions in Florida. And also because of this out-of-state choice, UNF being better, it did make the stress level a little bit bigger, a little bit lower once I got in-state tuition. How does this affect a college or a university? That brings me to my third point. According to Chronicle.com, institutions risk limiting access to their colleges, and this happens because public colleges oftentimes seek out-of-state students or students who can pay more, and because of the drastic change in tuition prices, that's why they choose out-of-state students. That's not only not fair to the out-of-state students because they're being chosen because they pay more money and they have to pay a bigger amount, but also that it's not fair to the in-state students that they're not being chosen just because of them being in-state and not having to pay as much tuition to that school. In conclusion, tuition costs are one of the main focuses and factors in deciding where to go to college when it should not be the main concern at all. And I took into account problems that would arise from going to an out-of-state university, and after hard work and 2 years later, finally getting in-state tuition, it drastically lowered my stress level over the tuition costs I would have to pay each year. Do you really want this to happen to your university, or do you want to not be able to go to your dream school just because of these tuition costs?